Anyhow, my intro is broken. As usual, something will always go wrong with live TV. Thank you all for coming. It is Wednesday. It is January the 8th. Things are moving fast. A lot of stuff is actually doing really well, but it's not reflected in the price. So today's video is really to figure out exactly what's going on. Why is Bitcoin struggling? Why did it fall from 102K to 92K in a level that we haven't been at for over a week? People think it's the end of the world. But anyway, institutions are buying, treasuries are stacking. But has the Fed lost the plot? Are stonks looking risky? How does this impact Bitcoin? And what else is going on? So we're going to really talk about stuff I've been talking about for a long time, the global debt spiral, and that's happening. DBF 430, thank you so much. Australia is here as well. Now, despite all the crazy activity, I'll share with you a lot of ugly charts today, as well as some very good ones. And we'll try and make a decision as to where we go from here. And don't forget, this is not financial advice, just a guy on the internet. Thank you all for coming. And hit the like. I did that the other day in DCA, and it popped up a little thing. But I don't know, maybe it's not working today. Who knows? It's all a mystery. Everything is a mystery. All my technology is dead. Anyhow, from BMAC, from Patreon. Hey, James, love your Patreon site. It's been great for my bags. Good to hear. And again, as I have said, the last 2 years have been incredible. Don't expect this year to be too amazing, but it could be quite good. Linda, good to see you again. Let's get into the news first. Then we'll get into all the charts, which I know people love the charts. First piece of news. Game theory. This is from Senator Lummis. Wouldn't it be fun if the U.S. is buying Bitcoin and it scares China and Russia they started buying Bitcoin? And then we have an arms race over Bitcoin instead of over weapons. That's what I've been calling it for a long time. The arms race to stack as much as you can. Price be damned. Go for it. Get it. That's what Sailor's doing. And we'll look at all the other stackers real shortly, and you'll be so surprised with what happened in the last 12 months. Bonkers. Moto89, thank you for coming. But I do believe, by the way, I'm pretty certain Russia's probably already stacking. They have a lot of what I call stealth Bitcoin mining happening in places like Siberia, and they are definitely keeping those coins. They are not selling them, and that's why the wallets can't actually be tracked. Michael Cairns, thank you so much. So, will this game theory happen? Probably. Will it happen 25? Probably. It's going to be fun. So don't let this first few days of January bother you all. But we'll try to get into exactly what's going on. Now, there are other countries around the world. Czech National Bank. I touched on this very briefly on DCA yesterday. And they are planning to allocate a little bit to Bitcoin too. Remember, country like Czech Republic, Czechia, whatever they call themselves now. Beautiful place. I love Prague, by the way. And if they start doing it, all the others will follow. Just waiting for that linchpin. El Salvador wasn't quite the linchpin we need, but one of these, wow, needs to happen. And then Korea, all of a sudden, where we know there's a ton of crypto trading. There's more crypto trading volume done in Korea than in the Korean KOSPA stock exchange. Now, South Korea is planning to lift its de facto ban on local institutions trading cryptocurrencies, and that will open up a whole world, institutional investors to open up trading accounts on crypto exchanges. And the regulator plans to actively work with Digital Asset Committee, PAC, that helps people. But could this mean we get another Meta Planet, but out of Korea? Probably. Very interesting to see. One of the things that's also interesting is the Korean car industry. How are they going to survive between Tesla and the Chinese car makers? It's going to be interesting. Now, Phuket, if you're planning a vacation in Thailand, you'll now be able to use your Bitcoin to fund your vacation. But you don't spend your Bitcoin, you spend your fiat. But anyway, it's pretty cool that Thailand is doing that too. So you're seeing more and more, just in one day, tons and tons of little nuggets, little breadcrumbs telling us the path forward is going to be very bright. So don't lose hope. Now, this is also a very insightful tweet from Jacob King. Just in, $370 million USDT transferred to Binance exchange to manipulate the price of Bitcoin. Yep, that's what Binance has been doing for a long time. That's what they continue to do. And yeah, a lot of players behind the scenes, you don't quite know what's going on behind the curtain or who is behind the curtain, but you're pretty darn certain that after the ETF spending $2 billion on Bitcoin in 2 days and the price goes down, something funky is going on. Really funky. And speaking of something funky going on too, Grandma needs to go. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said, COVID stimulus may have contributed a little bit to inflation. What, you mean increasing money supply by 40% in a couple of years? Yeah. How these people even have jobs, I'll never understand. It's comical. And remember, whatever you hear from these people in office, never tell you the truth because they have a bigger game in play that you are not privy to. And this is another one which I found very prescient and profound from Joe Bryan. What's the problem? And as I say, the governments will never tell you the real reason. They will never tell you the truth. And where does it end for Fiatello? It's this thing called Fiatello, like a Fiat character. I think it's quite brilliant. But first of all, it starts with hyperinflation. Thank you, Janet Yellen, for all the money printing. That leads to inflation, hyperinflation. And then ultimately, when the currency becomes really weak and the countries need to find ways of getting money, they have to seize assets. And then it brings about different forms of communism, and then that results in civil external war. But guess what? Bitcoin prevents all of this. And that's why I think it's so important for nation states to embrace Bitcoin. It solves all these problems. Okay, it's beautiful. Andrew Eklund, thank you for coming. Now let's get into the charts. I did warn you, we have lots of ugly charts, so brace yourselves. We're trying to get to the heart of what the problem is right now happening in the markets. And black segment is bad charts. Let's kick it off here. First of all, you have to understand the macro. We touched on this on DCA with the 10-year note is nearing 4.7%, with mortgages on the way to 8+%. Since the Fed pivot, this is critical, just 111 days ago, interest rates are up 110 basis points. I wish I could say 111 basis points, but it's just 110. So 0.01% off that magical 111. This has never happened before. So what's next? So basically, I'll repeat that again because it's profound. As I always say, the Fed are not in control. The only thing they can control or destroy is demand. That's it. They do not control the long end of the bond. Nobody wants these treasuries. So in order to juice the sales of these puppies, they need to increase the rates. And that's how it works. So never before in the history of the planet, you're watching history here, ladies and gentlemen, they cut rates by 100 basis points. And then the long end of the bond goes up by 111. You can't make this up. That's why every time you see Jerome Powell these days, he is upset. He's angry. She's happy. But he's angry. He's all sorts of... He never got to quash or achieve his magical 2% inflation. And now he's completely lost control of the bond market. And that is what's hurting markets because of this. Shout out to Luke Groman and Sanjay as well. This is basically where we are right now. If you look what Luke Groman said, he said, anything that strengthens the Dixie much further from here, tariffs, Doge, the Fed, etc., it will quickly send the 10-year U.S. Treasury yields to levels that will set off a U.S. and global debt spiral due to U.S. and foreign U.S. debt levels at 57 trillion in foreign U.S. dollar denominations. And the beatings in the long-term U.S. Treasuries will continue until the U.S. dollar is weakened. The problem is it's compared to all the other dirtier shirts in the laundry. We have 125% debt to GDP, 7% deficit, actually it's more like 10%. U.S. receipts sensitive to 10-year yields. U.S. rates will hit a level that will cause U.S. Treasury market to defunction and dysfunction, and therefore foreigners will run off their 8.5 trillion in U.S. Treasuries to sell to defend their own currencies. We're beginning to see, I always say risk happens fast, and I've been talking about debt spirals in macro videos for years now. Here we are. This could light the fuse. So unless something really clever happens, the dollar has to fall, which means Bitcoin price will go up, which is a good thing. But if we do get this debt spiral, everything could go to pot real fast. And that's what everybody is worried about. That's why the markets are worried as well. This is not good. Not good. The whole financial system is hanging by a thread. Okay? And Luke here, It might be a little bit doomsday-ish, but this day is going to come. We just don't know when. It's going to come because fiat will go to zero. And now you see as well other things that are happening too. This is from Joe Consorti. The Stonk risk premium is very, very bad right now. As we said, the bond market is the boa constrictor around the equity market's throat. The 10s have spiked 20 basis points since the beginning of the year. It's only 4 days the markets are open. And forward earnings in the S&P 500 are now lower than the 10-year US Treasury yield, making the risk-reward profile for owning equities over Treasuries negative for the first time in 23 years. Risk assets could be in for a big correction, unless you were in risk assets that are kind of safe from this type of stuff, like disruption stuff. Anyway, I made a post, rule number 40 of Rule du Jour is out. I shared it on Patreon. It talks about how if you're not making 14%, you're not making it. But now, the stock market is in danger of not even making 4.7%. Okay, think about that. That would be very destructive for everybody, especially with the financial situation we have now. And remember as well, Bitcoin is completely correlated to risk assets. The risk asset correlation between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ, okay, is 91% right now as we speak. Very high. You know, in July 2024, it was inversely correlated for a little while. That never lasts long. But now it's very correlated. So Bitcoin's going down as the markets are going down too. Now that we got all that ugly chart stuff out of the way, let's get into the good charts, because there is lots of good news too. This is the gold chart section. First of all, shout out to Axel. He shared this. He said, if we follow the 2017 bull run, the Bitcoin target is 200,000. And he said 90% of Bitcoin is in profit. 90% of the supply is in profit, despite what you may think, even down at these levels. Bitcoin prices we talk right now is 94,000. And if there are no black swan events in 2025, and if we follow the same trajectory of the 2017 bull cycle, and remember it's most similar to 2017, we've saying that for a long time, we could get to $200,000 Bitcoin, which is super exciting. We are in the kickoff phase. Again, we've had the kind of 15 to 100K already happen. Next could potentially be a doubling, which would be wonderful. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Axel believes it could if the pattern repeats. And remember, the money coming in is insane. We're going to talk about that right now. Another big day for Blackrock. Blackrock is the red line of this chart. Fidelity had a very big day 2 days ago. They did over, I think, 400 million one day. But you can see the big spikes of Blackrock are insane. What does this all mean? Well, we are still very positive for January, despite a little negative out day on January 2nd. It was kind of a weird 30-day wash trading rule for BlackRock where stuff was sold and then repurchased the next day. They've been waiting to do that for quite some time. But the money flows are still very, very positive, and we are in the biggest accumulation session in dollar terms ever for these Bitcoin ETFs. It is startling. What's even more startling is just in 4 days, these 7 ETFs sucked in 17,000 Bitcoin. So if you think of 17,000 divided by 4, it's 4,250 a day. Remember, only 450 Bitcoin issued a day. So these things are kicking off 2025 by sucking in 10x daily issuance. Absolutely uncanny. You know, people thought this thing would slow down. It's only accelerating. Everybody is now allocating to Bitcoin. We'll share some more news on this too in a second. But first, shout out to the gold bugs. BlackRock, their gold ETF, has been around for 21 years. And their iShares Gold Trust now has $33.5 billion in it after 21 years. Bitcoin is not even out for a year, their ETF, and now has nearly $55 billion in it. It is completely smoked gold, all right? Nobody wants this old gold stuff anymore. And remember, when the demonetization happens of gold, where's all that money going to go? Straight into you-know-where. And that's why many people believe the Bitcoin market cap will equate that of the gold market cap today, which will take us to a Bitcoin price of $850,000, which is nearly a 9x from here. Not bad. We'll take it. Now, who else is stacking? This is another stunning list. We're going to talk about Treasuries. It's worth talking about them a lot. As you know, it's a big part of my thesis as well for Bitcoin. It's huge, and it will far exceed the demand by retail investors in 2025. But this is now the number of Bitcoin held by the biggest players. IBIT, 560,000. MicroStrategy, 447,470. I love those patterns. Fidelity have eclipsed Grayscale, 208,000 versus 204,000. You got Tether, 84,000 Bitcoin. You got ARK, 48,000. Marathon, 45,000. BITB, I think it's Bitwise, 41,000, etc. And then the other little Grayscale fund, the new one with the lower fee, 38,000 Bitcoin. And then you got Riot, Hut, CleanSpark, Tesla, Coinbase, all have little bags. But this is kind of stunning. And what really is stunning is the growth that's coming to this area. Treasuries, with the new FASB accounting rule we talked about a lot in December, is in. That means more treasuries will happen. And here we already now have a doubling just in 2024 alone. The corporate Bitcoin holdings more than doubled, says Bitwise. It started off with 260,000. Now it's 591,000 Bitcoin, nearly 600,000 Bitcoin, just in corporate treasuries across 70 companies. Again, there's lots of small companies that aren't public companies, but they're also stacking as well. And they're sovereign stacking in a clever way, quietly. They don't want to trigger the domino effect, but this is bonkers. And this could very easily be over 1 million Bitcoin before the end of this year, on top of the amount that Blackrock and others will be bringing in. And Michael Saylor, he is kicking off plans to buy 2 billion capital raise. This time is different. This is going to be to the issuance of preferred stock, which pays a little dividend, which is very much preferred by insurance companies, etc. That all left California because of the fires, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Now, the intention of using these funds, obviously, if they do issue 2 billion in preferred stock that pays a dividend, they will use that to buy Bitcoin. They currently hold 447,470. If they do issue this 2 billion, that'll break them up to about, I reckon, another 23,000 Bitcoin. They could have 470,000 Bitcoin after this, and they're well on their way to raising 500,000 Bitcoin, I believe, easily within 2025. That'll be very, very large. And remember, I also believe it's possible for MicroStrategy to easily raise this money, but also the convertibles need to be issued. I do believe there's a chance, maybe they're just testing the market right now, there's a chance that they'll issue, say, 4 billion, 5 billion in convertibles, and they'll do it at a negative coupon. So people will give the money for free and actually pay to give them money. And they'll use the proceeds of that to pay for the preferred dividend. We shall see. Early days yet. But the other stunning thing about this too is BlackRock now and MicroStrategy own over 1 million Bitcoin. Oh, never more than 15 million will ever exist because so many are lost and gone. Maybe even 14 million is probably the total. But at least there'll never be more than 15 million Bitcoin. All right. These two puppies own 1/15 of it already. Stunning. And they're not slowing down. And I know the Bitcoin maxis hate the idea of heavy concentration amongst big players, but you got to remember the people behind these companies are actually retail investors. And this is their on-ramp to do it safely and securely. Also, the MicroStrategy playbook is growing fast. All these players, you got your ETFs sucking in a ton. You got your companies sucking in a ton. You got your miners who are holding. They're not selling. That used to be the source of Bitcoin for OTC desks. Now they're not letting go. So when supply crunch? I don't know. Has it ever looked this probable? The answer is no. Never looked as probable as it does in 2025. We'll see what happens, what shakes out. Other news too, long-term holder versus short-term holder supply. Another interesting statistic here from CryptoQuant. The long-term holder supply here shows, that's the blue on the bottom, the purple little line, shows a slight increase following the peak sell-off at 100K compared to the short-term holder supply. And this indicates that coins purchased 155 days ago by the short-term holders have transitioned into the long-term holder cohort. This is a very bullish sign. If this growth is confirmed over the next week, it can be considered that the long-term holder selling at these levels is finished. I've been hinting at that for a couple of weeks now, And currently the market looks very healthy. And if the growth of the long-term holder supply continues, it will serve as a strong bullish indicator. Also, feed the supply crunch. We shall see. And remember, I mentioned Binance probably putting a lid on Bitcoin prices. Well, that is very, very possible as well. Now, one of the chart 2 that shows, this is from Bitcoin Monger, and he says that all the dips are being bought up. People are going onto exchanges now. They are buying more and more Bitcoin, as the price falls more, and moving it off the exchanges in one fell swoop. And you can see by the big green bars there. Again, as price goes down, the amount that they buy goes up, and the amount they rip off the exchanges goes out the door, and probably, in many cases, may never return for a long time. So that is the story behind exactly why we believe Bitcoin is down at 94,000 when it was at 102K a couple of days ago. And that's all she wrote, ladies and gentlemen. Bitcoin Only playlist will be here right afterwards. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, Cyber Bulls on this channel too. We're talking Tesla for those who have Bitcoin and Tesla with the usual gang. Herbert, Jeff, Alexandra. It's going to be a very interesting show because a lot of stuff is happening with AI and domination, autonomy, NVIDIA, you name it, and robots. They are coming. They are coming. Literally. This year, as well as cars that drive themselves, all happening this year. 2025 is going to be magnificent. And that's why I hold heavy positions in both Bitcoin proxies, and of course Tesla too. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the mods in chat. Shout out to Sean Donnelly, TND Tesla, and everybody else. Love you all. I got to try fixing it. I think I got a problem with... Hang on a second. Let me try this. Still doesn't work. Oh well. Thank you all for coming. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.